Namaskar. I would first like to thank Jagyaseni ji of the Indian Dance Experience for having invited me here today to share some information on the healing powers of dance with my artist friends. Indian classical dance is a very ancient art form जिसको शास्त्रीय नृत्य कहते हैं and that has been inspired by the Natya Shastra. If we observe our senior dancers who are in their 70s and 80s, we can see that they perform with full creativity and zeal, choreograph and present their art form with such beauty and grace. What is the motivating factor behind their fitness and mental strength and capacity? A fit body is all about being energetic, being able to do one's duties without getting tired, not being lethargic or lazy, your muscles being in tone, and the mind being alert and receptive and creative, your heart rate and lung pulse rate being normal, and the desire to eat and the capacity to digest. As one grows older, all the above points that I just told you just start disappearing one by one. And one day in the early 60s, the one tends to shut himself up from most of the activities and become a couch potato and even depend on the younger people of the house or the maid for even a small thing like a glass of water. Today, I am going to talk to you about something about the therapeutic and beneficial effects of Indian classical dances on the mind and body of a learner, and the long enduring benefits that one gets during the rigorous training in the more than 10 years of training under a guru. First of all, the thing that is common to all classical dance forms are the head movements, eye movements, neck movements, foot movements that go on throughout a performance or training session. Secondly, all classical dance, let it be Kathak, let it be Odissi, Bharatnatyam or Kuchipudi, they are endowed with certain rules, and these rules are common to all classical dance forms. The rules are the eyes, follow the hands, and the bending on the right and the left has to be same. A beautiful smile when an artist performs. Keeping all these rules in mind, it is a beautiful experience. Sadhvi will show you the second chorale from the Tillana in Dhananjayans. When we dance in this manner, according to the Natya Shastra, all our Anga Lakshanas are used. Our body is accordingly divided into the Angas, Pratyangas and Upangas. The Angas are the 6 major body parts: the head, the hands, the chest, the sides, the waist and the feet. The Pratyangas are the shoulder, the back, the stomach, the shank, the thighs and the arms. The Upangas are 12 in number: eyebrows, eyes, eyelids, the nose, cheeks, lips, teeth, tongue, chin and face. Now each part has been studied in great detail and the Angalakshanas have been defined and meticulously they have codified in the Natya Shastra as the Shiro Vedas, Drishti Vedas, Griva Vedas, Pada Vedas and Gati Vedas. When according to the rules that we just saw before, all these parts are moved simultaneously and symmetrically. What do you mean by that? Suppose I move my head, then my eyes and then my arms. These are three movements. If I move them together, it is a simultaneous movement, and if we move it on both sides of the body, it is simultaneous symmetric movement. So Indian classical dance actually consists of simultaneous symmetric movements that are performed together, so that hundreds of movements are performed in a very short span of time, a very compact and comprehensive type of movement system. So I will show you this with the help of a very small item. This is also the first item of the Margam of a Bharatanatyam reciter, and that is the Alaripu. The Alaripu will be now demonstrated by my senior disciple Sadhvi Sundareshan, who is a degree holder in Bharatnatyam. She performed her Arangetam and she is also the recipient of the Ministry of Culture Scholarship. So Sadhvi will now demonstrate how in the Alaripu the SSM or simultaneous symmetric movement system is used. That was the first half, consisting of mainly the shoulder, neck, eye, head, arm movements, and in this we saw 224 movements. Now we come to the second half. Thumbs. This thumb. This is like a tree. That tree. This is like a thumb. This thumb. This is like a tree. That tree. This is like a thumb. This thumb. Tree. That tree. 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 Thumb. That tree. Now, all the movements that we used in this piece were all voluntary muscles. The muscles that we used were voluntary muscles, which means muscles that are under our control. But there are so many muscles of the internal organs that are not under our control, like the muscles of the heart, the lungs, the intestines, the abdomens. The voluntary muscle movements act as muscular trigger to stimulate the function of the internal organ muscles, improving circulation, ventilation, abdominal movements, etc. Thus, classical dance is an ideal movement system for the skeletal muscles. This means the lungs during these movements take in more oxygen, the heart pumps more blood, and the organs produce appropriate hormones. That means Indian classical dance is an ideal movement system for the skeletal system. Now we come to the nervous system. Now let us come to the next part of my talk, that is, how does Indian classical dance affect the nervous system? You must be familiar with the relation between a battery and a bulb. Just like without a battery, a bulb cannot glow. And without a bulb, the battery is as good as dead. In the same way, the muscle and the nervous system. The demands that the classical dance puts on the muscular system acts as a tonic for the nervous system. The demands that the classical dance makes on the more than 10,000 muscle fibers keeps the nervous system in super tone in dance. क्लासिकल डांस के नृत्य के मूवमेंट्स ना केवल कॉम्प्लिकेटेड होते हैं, इनको हम 3 स्पीड्स में और 5 जातीस में टोटल ऑफ 35 तालास में हम परफॉर्म करते हैं. Researchers say that the nervous system, this is a very important point, research says that the nervous system is strengthened when load-bearing exercises are done with the legs. And naturally, in classical dance, the legs are the main part that perform the nritya. Neurological health depends on as much as on the signals sent by the body to the large leg muscles and vice versa. Indian classical dance is a perfect load-bearing exercise on the legs. And in such an exercise, signals are sent to the brain, which is very important for the production of healthy neural cells. बहुत सारे लोग जो स्टेशनरी काम करते हैं, जैसे कि जो बेड रिडन होते हैं या एक ही जगह में बैठ के ऑफिस का काम करते हैं, in them the body chemistry is altered at the cellular level itself and nervous system is impaired. जब हम nervous system के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, then we cannot leave out the brain. The brain, which is the most important part of the body, which actually tells the attitude, the capacity of a person, the talent of a person. बहुत बार हम देखते हैं एक क्लास में there are चंद बच्चे, there are some children that get 100% marks, 95% marks, and mostly the children of the class, they are 50% scorers. I was working in my research with Dr. P.N. Singh, who is an educational psychologist, and she said that this amount of 50% scorers is about 70% of the children, and these 70% children are slow learners. What do you mean by slow learners? Slow learners are those children who look normal, totally normal, but they are not able to score well in their education. The brain is very significantly affected by a course of Indian classical dance in many ways. Number one, the right hemisphere of the brain, which controls the left side of our body, is that part, the right hemisphere, that is to do with creativity and the arts. When this part is highly stimulated, highly developed, like for an example in a course in some arts like Indian classical dance, that person starts thinking in innovative manner and is very artistic and creative. Number two, the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is another part of the brain that is affected positively by Indian classical dance movements. This part of the brain deals with sensation, perception, cognition, spatial awareness, all connected to the visual system. In classical dance, as I told you before, there is a total eye-hand-brain coordination. along with many exercises and many movements that we perform for sharpening the spatial perception, for sharpening the visual perception, sequential perception, etc. पहले आते हैं हम स्पेशल परसेप्शन. दिस मीन्स मूविंग इन स्पेस. अगर हम एक ग्रुप परफॉर्मेंस लिया जाए, इतनी सुंदर लगता है जब एक कथक और भरतनाट्यम का ग्रुप परफॉर्मेंस 4 और 5 पीपल करते हैं, ट्राइंगल्स बनाते हैं, रेक्टेंगल्स बनाते हैं, सर्कल्स बनाते हैं स्टेज में, इतना ब्यूटीफुल लगता है. ये जो अभी आपने देखा था, दिस वॉज द पुदितमेट अड़வு, द परवल अड़வு, द तीर्मानम अड़வு. In these अड़வுs, we saw the diagonal lines, vertical lines, different movements of creation of patterns in space. And now we come to the sequential perception, another part of the parietal lobe. हमने ऑलरेडी देखा है इससे पहले भी कि हाउ एक छोटा सा प्रस्तुति में भी हाउ मेनी सीक्वेंसेस कैन वी डू. So let me show you a very small sequence from the Tode Mangalam, and keeping in mind of course the talam and the rhythmic pattern. Just imagine that there is a mentally challenged child or a slow learner, and उनको हम कुछ sequences देते हैं, जैसे even touching sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, and we tell them to repeat the sequence. वो याद नहीं रख पाएगा, वो 3, 4 मतलब last 2 या last 1 like that. So imagine if there is a training of such a child in Indian classical dance in such a sequential exercise, then just think that how this defect can be corrected. Next is visual perception. Bharatanatyam ले लो या कोई भी art form, throughout the artist has to visualize an object, visualize a god, visualize a person, and then perform. So during this visualization process, the visual perception is developed. When all these three perceptions are strengthened, the child becomes strong in mathematics, languages, and writing, as all these skills are developed from spatial, visual, and sequential perceptions. Another defect that comes from a damaged or affected parietal lobe is finger agnosia. That is the lack to identify one's fingers, and another is the left-right hand discrimination. Finger agnosia is lack of ability to identify one's fingers, forefinger, middle finger, thumb, etc. All the above defects lead to serious impairments which a parent may overlook as clumsiness, difficulty in reading, recognizing a person or object, awareness of his or her own limbs, tying of shoelace, positioning in space. Such skilled activities like will be impaired and causing difficulty in writing, like dyslexia or dyspraxia. So, in Indian classical dance, there is a very big gift that has been given to us by the Shastras, and that is the Hasta Mudras. A child can perform the Hasta Mudras without even looking at the hand. The 28 Asamita Hasta Mudras and the 23 Samita Hasta Mudras. In the same way, left hand, right hand discrimination is also a very important thing. A usual normal child can easily raise one hand and lower one hand without any difficulty, or raise one thumb and do something else with the other hand without any difficulty. But an affected child cannot. In Indian classical dance, we have so many exercises of right hand doing a different activity and the left hand doing a different activity. So in this we saw, while the left hand held the pataka, the right hand was holding the Ala Padma, which went up, and Mukta Kataka Mukha came back to the pataka. Then the left hand took the same movement while the right hand was still. So this is a very difficult task for the brain to do if it is impaired. When a classical dance training takes place, these defects disappear. There are 19 such parameters on which we have done our research, which all cannot be covered in today's lecture. And going on with the brain, what I'm going to say now is really going to make parents and teachers happy. It was found in my research and experiments that the IQ level of classical dance students, artists, increases due to the increase in the oxygen transport capacity to the brain. An experiment was done in America, which I did in my experiments also, that is circuit training. When the body is given exercise of circuit training, which means doing a number of activities of high variety, and not monotonous activity, but a variety of activities, one by one. You do one activity, then you sprint, then you sit, then you do this, then you do that in a sequence that has to be remembered by the brain. And at the end of the whole thing, after this type of practice for about a few months, the oxygen transport capacity to the brain increases, thus improving the IQ. That is why in my book I have named the classical dance as food for the brain. Emotions, expressions, remembering of Sahitya, the literal meaning, elaboration through Sanchari to such a level as to create aesthetic pleasure and appreciation in the audience is not an easy task. A child or adult artist has to put in all she has or he has to create this. It never becomes an automatic task. Every time she or he performs, the total involvement of the brain is required to create the desired effect and tears in the eyes of the audience. So, you may have seen many times, been amazed at the perfect balance that is shown by even young artists as they lift one leg and take it up and hold it there for about 16 seconds with a glowing smile on the face as they demonstrate the beautiful Tandava of Shiva. I know, now go to another section that is also closely connected to the nervous system, and that is foot acupressure. This is an ancient Chinese system in which the theory is that there are energy channels that connect one part of the body to another part of the body. They can start at the palm of the hands or in the earlobes or in the feet and end in different organs of the body. These areas, when stimulated through pressure or through needles like in acupuncture, can cure the ailing organs by stimulation. I had felt for a long time that there was something different in Indian classical dance that is not there in any other dance form of the world, which makes Indian classical dance artists different, giving them immunity from diseases and longevity of life. Then I realized that this was the bare feet movement, that जो थाप होता है डांस में, जो कथक का या भरतनाट्यम का इंडियन क्लासिकल डांसेस में सुनाई देता है, किसी भी डांस क्लास में आप जाइए. I had worked during my research period with Dr. Raman Kapoor, who was a specialist in acupressure and also a doctor on panel in many organizations. I studied acupressure with him and discussed many of the foot movements we do in classical dance and compared them to the pressure applied on the planta or the feet for curing or preventing the occurrence of many diseases. Many sittings are required in acupressure for curing the disease. But वही हमारे इंडियन क्लासिकल डांस में ड्यूरिंग द मेनी years of rigorous training, the barefoot movement, the pressure applied, the different pressure applied on the different points of the feet can actually, as per Dr. Raman Kapoor also, prevent the occurrence of many diseases like colitis, low blood pressure, kidney problems, immunity from diseases are increased, etc. This you can see now, the foot diagram of the acupressure points at the feet, and you can see how, like in the toes, you have got what is point number 1, point number 2 in the just in the portion below the toes. So all these portions, all these pressure points of the feet are thoroughly used in Indian classical dance. These have been described as Pada-Vedas in the Natya Shastra. Sadhvi will now demonstrate to you the Pada-Vedas. Uttaritam samam chaiva tata agratarasam ansitam kunjitam chaiva tata pada kunjitam. Least does the artist know that they are doing a very perfect acupressure massage. Now I come to another important part of the body that affects Indian classical dance, that is the effect of dance on the heart and the respiratory system. Movement of the right kind is needed for the lungs to take in maximum oxygen, fill its every smallest bronchiole with air so that our blood that comes from the heart can be purified. This everybody, ye to sab log jante. This is the basic. What our children and adults are doing nowadays is actually shallow breathing. Now, there are two types of exercises. There is the anaerobic exercise that is just a burst of activity in a short time, and the other is the aerobic exercise, that is a moderate exercise that can be done for a longer time. An exercise that is done moderately for a longer time with faster and slower movements alternating. This such type of an exercise actually increases the reserve capacity of the lungs. And children who regularly follow the dance form and practice actually do not get frequent respiratory diseases and have strong lungs. Now I will explain the breathing technique that we use in dance. When an artist performs, the dancer enters the stage walking, and at that time, walking gracefully, she takes in oxygen. Then she does the beating of the foot, in which also she can take in oxygen, deep breathing. And then there comes the burst of activity, that is the jati or the korve, in which the breath is held. After which, when the aradi is over and the mayaravu or the walking back is in, again the air is let out gracefully without getting the audience to know that the air is being let out. So this is actually, technically speaking, a dynamic deep breathing. This is very, very beneficial. The dancer does not stop anywhere. It is either movement, or it is a taking of a pose, or it is a moving slowly, or it is a burst of activity. Sadhya will demonstrate with a small chorway from a Jati Swaram. I can relate myself to one incident when I was performing a Kuchipudi performance, and in that, after entering and performing very rigorously for about 2.5 minutes, then I have to go to the right corner and hold the posture of Ganesha, Shiva and Parvati. So while at the end of the 2.5 minutes, my heart was pumping so hard. At that time, I just felt like, taking out my air. But no, I can't, because I have to take the 3 postures, and that also gracefully with a smiling face. So I was holding the breath and letting it very damn slow, very, very slowly through the nose and then vent. So this is how the dynamic deep breathing exercise goes on. If you look at the heart, it is a muscular organ, and muscular organ which pumps blood according to a certain level. I sometimes feel myself, it may not be true, that the rhythm of the heart, it corresponds to our Tisra Jati, lab tab, lab tab, lab tab. So tak kid tak. It is harmony. It is beating in a rhythm. When it does not beat in a rhythm, it is called as arrhythmias. We've got arrhythmias or tachycardia, like that. So, as I told you before, there are about 10,000 muscle fibers in the body, and every muscle fiber, through every muscle fiber, a very thin capillary moves. Every muscle fiber. So, when a body is in an active mode matlab you need not be practicing at this time. You may be practicing daily in the morning, but that active body, in that active body, the muscle fiber is always in a vibrating mode. And when a muscle fiber is vibrating like this, it keeps on exerting a pressure on the capillary, and the blood inside the capillary is pushed forward. So this acts throughout the body, and thus this helps in venous return, and this helps the heart, because the heart pumps the body, and all these 10,000 muscle fibers, we can call them as mini pumps or mini hearts. They help the blood to come back to the heart. Thus the longevity of the heart and the strength of the heart is increased. जब हम breathing और lungs के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, तो yoga shastra is very, very closely related to classical dance. Many of our artist friends have made Yoga Sutra, Nritya Yoga. Many people have studied on this, and it is actually true that yoga and dance are actually closely related. It is a dynamic yoga. What is yoga? Yoga क्या है? It is a concentration. It is a focus. Building of a flexible body. Developing your breathing. एक artist जो इस योगिक एक्सरसाइज को करता है, इस हाईली फिट एंड इस नृत्य और अभिनय से बहुत बढ़िया तरीके से ये निभाते हैं। योगा का मतलब है सेल्फ कंट्रोल. द रूल्स ऑफ योगा आर द बैक शुड बी केप्ट स्ट्रेट वेदर इन मेडिटेशन और इन आसना, so that the internal organs are not compressed. So it is with classical dance. Keep the back straight. The breathing technique is deep breathing or pranayama, and we just saw a while ago how we practice dynamic deep breathing. The asanas are to be done with proper flexibility and bending. So it is with classical dance. And Indian classical dance so is a dynamic yoga, which means that in this all the rules of yoga are applied in a dynamic form. As I told you before, the back is kept straight at all times. Like the asanas, there are 108 karanas and they combine to make angaharas. Let me just demonstrate to you very quickly a few of the 3-4 asanas that correspond to our steps. Karasana, Samapada, Sthana, Vrikshasana, Ekapada Sthana, Uttishta Trikonasana, Nakada 8, Padmabhushan, Nakada 6, Anjaneyasana, 16 Mandiyara. So in this way, there are many movements that correspond to the yogic movements. It's not that simple. It is actually a very interrelated subject. When we come to meditation, we have two kinds of meditation. One meditation is one gets by closing one's eyes and focusing on a bindu. But the other meditation is keeping your eyes wide open and your mind wide open with total distraction, lights and the audience and the orchestra, and then you are concentrating on an object like you saw a little while ago. So this is also meditation. In this, the artist goes into the meditative mode, going into the another level, taking the audience to a higher level, into a spiritual level, and experiencing सहजानंद. एक एग्जाम्पल बताती हूँ मैं. लॉन्ग टाइम अगो मैं एक भरतनाट्यम का परफॉर्मेंस कर रही थी चिन्नंजलि के लिए. इट वॉज एन आइटम एंड वी हैड प्लान विद द ऑर्केस्ट्रा दैट ही शुड सिंग 8 times. But when I went into the performance mode, I got so much engrossed in the mother-daughter relationship in that item that I kept on performing, and he didn't get the clue for that next line. I kept on performing, and he kept on singing, and then suddenly I realized that the next line did not come, so then I went to the next line. बाद में पता चला that is he sang 38 times. So that was not planned because we go into that meditative mode. इस कोविड-19 के से लड़ने के समय में artists are showing great strength of mind, determination, and are continuing with creativity. They are showing what is meditation in arts and what is arts in meditation. The government is bringing arts into education. Education means arts have a major role to play, as you all saw the various benefits which should go to every child. अच्छे आचार्य बहुत हैं जो सही तरीके से अंग लक्षणों के साथ सिखाते हैं और ये सारे बेनिफिट्स बच्चों को मिल सकते हैं. There are 2 traits to the character of a child. One is the imitative trait जिसको देखते उसको ऐसे कैसे कॉपी करना, और एक्सपेरिमेंटल साइड जिसमें बच्चा क्रिएट करता है, एक्सपेरिमेंट करता है. इंडियन क्लासिकल डांस ट्रेनिंग में पहले जो ऑलरेडी है वो सिखाते हैं और वो इमिटेट करता है स्टूडेंट. जब ये सब परफेक्ट हो जाता है, मास्टर हो जाता है, देन एक्सपेरिमेंटल स्टाइल शुरू हो जाता है. एंड इन क्लासिकल डांस एक बच्चे में बहुत सारे पॉजिटिव ट्रेट्स लेके आता है, इनबिल्ट करता है. आत्मविश्वास जैसे कि कॉन्फिडेंस, द पावर टू टेक चैलेंजेस. एवरी टाइम द स्टूडेंट फेसेस द स्टेज or participates in a competition, it is the building up of confidence. Every assignment is a challenge. Creativity and mastery is another aspect that is needed, because in this world of competition, perfection is the only answer. Art forms need perfection to be noticed or appreciated. But there is so much scope to innovate that in this beautiful journey, everyone who does well gets a chance. Humility, grace, a thirst for knowledge, capacity to admire are only some of the positive traits that a training in Indian classical dance can build into the personality of an artist. The benefits of dance on the body is on one side, its effects on the mind on the other side, its permanent effects on the spiritual level, taking the artist and the audience to a higher level of consciousness. That is the ultimate effect for which every artist strives for. The realization of the self and merging with the Almighty. Thank you.